Things and things and things and all of the things. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dogs and cats, children and babies, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be joining us from. My name is Devin Morgan, Director of Youth Baseball at Driveline, founder of the Driveline Academy, and this is the Driveline Academy podcast, the world's most dangerous youth baseball podcast. And I am joined, as per usual, by my brother, my partner, my co-host, Driveline Academy Assistant Director, International Man of Mystery, Jeremy Tectiel. Okay, we got that done.
It's getting faster and faster every week too.
We're getting efficient. Should set some KPIs here. Housekeeping.
I got a stopwatch.
Hey, you measure what matters. Axbat.com, code DL20. Get yourself 20% off Axbat bats, game bats, training bats, stuff. They have other stuff than just bats there. Axbat.com, code DL20. Diner liver 20.
I thought you were gonna go lasagna, honestly, like diner lasagna, but diner liver's more memorable.
Yeah.
If you've ever eaten diner liver, you probably remember it. Positive or negative.
I remember a family vacation one time, and my dad was like, "We're gonna go to this place, and it's got great liver." And I was young enough to not really understand what that means, and I was like, "All right, well, Dad's like hyped about this, so let's go see." I didn't order liver, and I watched what he ordered, and I was like, I am never in my life going to eat that.
So this is where I admit that, like, I kind of like liver.
Is it just like it has to be prepared the right way?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
It also, I do feel like it's a taste that, like, when you get older, you're just going to, like, enjoy it more than when you were younger. I don't know if it's, like, the aesthetics of it, but, like...
Yeah.
I don't know. I had the same thought, when we would have holidays and my family had chopped liver, and it's like, that looks disgusting. I'm not going to eat that, but thank you for making me pass it to the next person and making it like waft into my nose. And then 10 years later, I'm like, no, pass it over here. Like, give me
yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah. I take it. The palate gets more sophisticated, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyways, code DL20, axbat.com, 20% off. Good stuff there now. More fun, new stuff coming on the way. Also, going to be road showing the Skills at Scale training manual. Per the advice of my wonderful wife, I am not going to call it a book anymore because a book suggests that it's like a tiny little thing, and it's a big thing. It's probably going to be a couple hundred pages. It's going to have programs. It's going to have team training. It's going to have individual training. It's got everything. In which case, we gotta, like, if it's gonna replace HTKCY, it's gotta be good and big. So we're gonna get out and talk about it. I'm gonna be at a couple places, and if you or someone is running a youth, high school, or college coaches convention, and you want us to have somebody come in from Driveline to kind of talk about what we do with our academy and why and all the ins and outs and what have you, Devin at drivelinebaseball.com, 2 E's, holler at your boy. I said we weren't going to turn this show into like the youth baseball bummer power hour.
Hold on, I got a good transition though.
Okay.
It took a little bit of time, but the transition was going to be, your palate gets more sophisticated as you get older. Humans don't though.
Ooh boy.
Sometimes. Humans don't get more sophisticated as they age. Apparently, is the lesson that we're learning from the first couple weeks of travel ball. Well,
and here's the thing. We're going to talk about parent behavior today. If I was going to put like an inflammatory title on this episode, I would probably just say parents are the problem. And I would do that, and a lot of people would go like, well, I'm a good parent in youth baseball, and like, you are. And so,
well,
like,
you think you are.
You
hopefully you
right.
are. Hopefully you are.
You're right.
But like,
no, you're right.
It's hard to take them at that word, like.
True. So it's October. Year of our Lord 2023.
Hear me out there. October baseball. High stakes if you're a big leaguer.
Yeah. And when you're...
they're not... They're 14-year-olds aren't big leaguers?
Oh, man. Super weird. So in the last 2 weeks, there have been a couple videos that have just... called to me about like how bad things can be. What we'll do is we'll kind of like lay them over in editing. I guess the first we can talk about is the 14U game where the coach enters stage left and like,
Can I coach the coach on his tackling form?
do
I
you
never played
remember-
football, and I'm pretty sure I know how to do it better than that guy.
Was it office linebacker Terry Tate?
Oh, Terry Tate, man.
Okay, so
I brought that up like 3 weeks ago, and I can't remember who it was to, but they were younger than I was, and they were like, "I have no idea what that is," and I was like, "Man, that was it in high school. Like we all wanted to be Terry Tate in the hallways in high school."
so
Go watch
so-
those videos. Great videos.
So this coach is clearly not either Terry Tate, office linebacker, or a student of Terry Tate, office linebacker,
Correct.
because he enters stage left.
Could be a student of the Chicago Bears though. Shout out, boys.
Yeah. In the bottom of the fourth, 14U game, scores 15-1. Enter stage left.
I assume his team was losing.
Yeah.
Okay.
As
Do
far as-
is that like confirmed? Okay.
I think it's largely confirmed by the comments that I've seen. So, wisdom of crowds, maybe, I don't know. Entry stay left, and there's just like full, Bo Jackson about to just like blow somebody up.
Don't do that to Bo.
But then it's like Bo Jackson when the hip fell apart because then he just like falls in a big ball of dust on his way to try to legitimately like tackle the umpire.
Yeah, that's
And
what it looked like,
That's
yeah.
clearly what it looks like. And in the thing that I said in the jokey Jokerton I made is it's like, that this has been a great week for youth baseball when this is the second most terrible thing that I've seen lately. And it is the second most terrible thing.
Because that one, the biggest, the only people that got hurt were probably that coach and his dignity. Luckily, the umpire did not get tackled and did not get hurt there, but like nobody was harmed except for that coach and his dignity. And then obviously it looked like they pulled both teams off the field and canceled the game. So like,
yeah, I mean his dignity is going to need Tommy John. Like his dignity is going to need some time on the IR.
it's a good one.
That's tough.
Tommy John surgery for your dignity. I like
Yeah,
it.
but
Do we pull dignity from another part of your body?
I don't. I mean, is there any
Like dignity from your hamstring and put it in your elbow? Like,
Yeah. The tough thing is that you're right. The visible injury is largely absent. The guy walks off the field under his own power, as does the umpire because he completely missed the tackle.
I was gonna say, to be fair to all the listeners who aren't aware, I'm not a very online person. So I watched these videos about 8 minutes ago.
About that.
One of them made my heart hurt. The other one, I did laugh initially, and I'm glad that he missed the umpire, but like that's where I draw the distinction. It's like one of them, like I actually legitimately want to cry after.
Yeah.
And the other one, like I just want to laugh at that guy
Yeah.
and his missed flying tackle.
So to avoid the youth baseball bummer power hour, we can focus on the more amusing stuff. The first thing that jumps off the page to me is like, number one, the game is 15-1.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that at the end of this clip, one of the parents in the stands is like, that wasn't even a strike.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
A lot of strike calls before this one actually might have made a difference. We're well past that point. The second thing I love is that again, this thing is all happening in October. But I think my favorite thing is that the home and away team, same org. I don't know if you noticed that. It's the same org.
Are we sure? Or are they both just on the Gulf Coast?
I mean, maybe it's not same org. But
I mean,
maybe that's
Me and Rich got into it a little bit last year when our team scrimmaged, but like I can't imagine that.
I mean, maybe I've got that wrong, but like, man, 14U game. It's 15-1. It's October.
I can't.
Is there anything that would compel you?
I was just gonna say, like, I can't imagine what scenario would get me that angry at an umpire that I would, in like any scenario where, like, I mean, it's me, but like, I'm not. I can't even fathom charging an umpire in a game. But like, I guess it's a little bit more understandable if it's like a 5-4 game and he just blew a huge call that like,
Yeah, sure.
like I get
Sure.
that.
Sure.
But 15-1, like maybe you're like the kindest thing I can maybe take out of this is maybe he was trying to fire up his team because they were losing. I
mean, they're only
there's
chasing
better ways to do it. But like That's the nicest, the most optimistic way I can think of the situation is that was his goal, was to like fire up his team that was losing by 14 runs.
Chasing 14, so it's not, not of. I mean, it's 2 touchdowns.
Although, wait a minute, hear me out. Was he gaming the whole thing? So you're down by 14. That game ended in a forfeit. Forfeits are less than 14 than a minus 14 run differential.
Could be.
Was he trying to like intentionally forfeit this game without forfeiting it so that there was like a better run differential in the tournament standings? Because I'm assuming this was a tournament.
I mean, gotta be, right?
Yeah,
it's gotta be.
It's October travel ball. Yeah. Obviously, it's a tournament. But like, that's the most optimistic way I can look at this, is like he was trying to fire up his kids. There's, even in that scenario, what are you doing, dude? And like any other scenario, like if I'm the umpire, I know he missed me. I'm still pressing charges.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. I mean, that's still assault, right?
It's intent to, is that a thing? I just did jury duty for a week. I should know. I don't think I think intent to assault is a thing.
I mean,
and we have video evidence that he intended to assault the guy.
It's like the hair splitting probably isn't even necessary because you're still trying to tackle an umpire at a 14U game. And I think the interesting part is you going, I can't imagine anything that would compel me to do this.
Literally, like, nothing matters that much in a youth game period, let alone an October travel ball youth game, to set that example for your athletes. That is the way to handle whatever situation you think is happening.
Right, and that's the problem, right? Because his pride and his dignity is going to go on the IR, right? Like you just blew that out. But the invisible pain and the invisible hurt and the invisible consequence here is what these kids experience and their impression about baseball is because of what just happened.
So this, I won't name any organizations or anything, but like we had, we played some teams last year that had some rough coaching and how they addressed and spoke to their players. And one of the things that stuck out to me talking to one of my parents was when he realized the coach from this other organization was this kind of human, he spent basically the entire rest of the game, every time the coach said something, looking at the stands, seeing how parents reacted.
Okay.
Like you're saying, you're talking to kids in this manner. Mm-hmm. I assume that kid that you just talked to, his parents or relatives are sitting in the stands somewhere, or at least like,
kid didn't drive himself.
Right. And like if it's not his parents, maybe like somebody else's parents that drove the kid, or like there's a parent sitting in the stands that like you would think would have a reaction to the way some of these kids were being treated. Now, I would love to know how many of the kids on that team, or how the parents felt about that. How many of them are immediately looking for another org, or how many of them are there with him yelling, "That wasn't a strike!" And like, I love the fact that my coach just tried to flying tackle an umpire because it wasn't a strike. I'd be very curious to know that information.
Well, I've got some of it for context.
Ooh.
But after that, I do want to I want to answer the question about like, okay, it's easy for us to kind of talk trash about this guy, this behavior, etc. Travel ball, the way that it compels it, etc. I think there's a different conversation to have about how to, if you're an interested listener who wants to use this as a learning point, how do you respond to this differently? Like what are some structural steps? Yeah. Fine, we can get into that. However, one of the kids on that team has played for 22 different baseball teams since 2018. There's a little bit of there. I think when I looked it up, there's a little bit of crossover because like for some reason in a couple of different, it's like it's the same name, but it doubled up somehow in like the U-Trip database or whatever. 22 teams since 2018. And
this, so they settle on this guy.
Yeah.
You're bouncing around a lot.
Yeah. Well, and so I dug a little bit deeper. And this kid on the team that he was he was on.
Was Joey Bats.
Shout out to the OG listeners that remember the Joey Bats callback. Um, his 9U team went 45-3. Okay, great year. His 12U year, 49, 28, and 2.
I was going to comment on the game volume for 9U actually not being awful, like not good, but like not as abusive as I
Right.
expected it. And then you increase by 30
So
games.
now we're almost 80 games as a 12-year-old. But this is where it gets interesting. The kid's 13U year, 6, 44, and 7. So your 12U year, you win almost 50 games out of the near 80 you played. In your 13U year, you only win 6. Currently, in this kid's 14U year, they're 2 and 13.
You can't write that better. Like, there couldn't be a more clear signal.
You can't tell me that there isn't an optimal way that like guys lean into to win games at the youth level that doesn't scale. You just can't tell me that. I'm not going to buy it because that's the evidence that like it doesn't work. Because if you won 94 games in 2 years and then the next year you win 6, what does that tell you about how your formative experience informed the place you need to get to?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm aware that there's a bunch of variables that we don't know, right? Like the kid's obviously switching teams. He's going from org to org. Like, maybe he did just go from like a very, very good 12-year-old team to like a very, very bad 13U team. I suppose all of that is possible. I didn't do like a super deep dive to look at the kid's stats because that's kind of immaterial to the whole thing. It's not even about the kid. I'm not trying to put the kid, I'm not trying to knock him at all, but like the club hopping thing clearly isn't working. And from a skill development side, something ain't working. So what, like, the whole thing's just broken. And it's not even 90 games from 9U to 12 because I didn't pull I did literally like a 9U sample and a 12U sample. I didn't look at 10 and 11. Played about the same games. If I looked at it quickly, I didn't record the exact numbers, but it's about somewhere between 50 and 70 games a year. From 90 wins over 2 seasons at 9U and 12 to 8 wins between 13 and 14. Like, what does that say, man? Is it not just like readily apparent that this thing doesn't scale?
No, because they're just going to blame it on the kids, probably.
Yeah.
Kids got worse.
Yeah.
Or the good kids left.
Yeah. And like, I mean, this kid that I pulled up, not small. I think he's like 5'6", like 145 pounds. Like, at 14U, which is, I think, like normal-ish.
Weight is good. Height's probably slightly lower than average, but like that's a good weight for a 14.
Especially for that height, right?
Yeah.
It's just so somebody asked a question like, okay, we all know this is terrible. How do I, as a parent, start to think about this differently to not put myself in that position? And it's like, okay, like let's go down the list. Why are you playing games in October? Why are you playing games in October? Number one. And I think that's reasonable to question because it questions your perspective on the intention of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? And especially for a kid who's, one of the kids on your roster is playing 70, 80 games a year prior. Why are you playing games in October? This kid has, about a year and a half until high school? Some ain't working. There's probably a different there's a more impactful ROI that you could get spending that time in a different place rather than doing this in October. And shout out to anybody that was looking at the World Bat Classic stuff. I just heard some stuff about schedule down there that's just like 9 games over the course of 3 days, or like
great. No evidence to show that is gonna have some deleterious effects.
Questioning the intention of actions like this. Why are we playing games in October is a valid starting point for this discussion about how to do it differently, because I think you have to grapple with, like, what am I trying to get out of this?
Right. Because obviously I'm not a proponent of playing fall ball, right? Neither are you, right?
Firmly.
I believe the only reasonable argument to playing fall ball is like it's practice games. Like these are like very developmental, right? Like I almost think of it as like an instruction pro ball, where it's just like
Sure.
we're bringing the team together before we actually start playing games to take some of the stuff that we're trying to improve in training and test it out.
Yeah.
Under like very low circumstances, low stakes baseball.
Yep.
So like, if question one is why are you playing baseball in October, and the answer is we want to test out some of these things in a game like environment. Okay, well, why are you getting that mad if these are low stakes games?
Correct.
In October, why
Correct.
are you getting that mad? I think everyone would agree that the high stakes games are not played in October for youth baseball.
I don't know.
Like even the teams that are playing games in October, nobody's going to say that's the highest stakes that they're going to play. It's summer ball.
Yeah.
So like, question one is why are you playing? Question two is like, why do you care that much about the results of the games you're playing? But like, I also think you're probably being too kind in asking both of those questions.
Glass half full guy.
Because like, you could play those games for the right reason, for the wrong reason, right reason, whatever, and still not do that thing.
Right. So that's the next thing, right? Like how. I mean, this isn't even about coaching. This is like managing your emotions as a functional adult.
Yeah, and I can I'll jump in as someone who wanted to umpire intramural or wanted to ref intramural basketball in college and was told I can't because I, as a player in intramurals, had too many technical fouls.
Let's go.
So I could not referee basketball games. Totally fair.
Sure.
Didn't argue it like I argued most calls. I decided not to take that. I'm just going to take the L on that one and nod and say thanks for consideration, and I'll see you Tuesday on the court.
Oh man, I am getting you a Rasheed Wallace jersey. It's just going to happen.
And someone who is the only coach currently coaching a driveline that's been ejected from a game.
Yeah. That's right.
So like I am not always the best at managing my emotions. I'm a very competitive person who like I'm in the heat of the game and I want to win very badly. And like I tell my boys all the time, like you don't argue with umpires. I do. Like you leave that to me. And like there are times where like I have to do that thing, otherwise they're going to. And like I don't even maybe agree with the specific call that I'm arguing. Like I don't think it's a good idea to argue that call, and I may have to do it anyway sometimes so that my team doesn't, and they know that like I have their back or whatever. But I can't imagine ever getting to the point where I would try to tackle an umpire. Like so the story of me getting ejected, which I don't think I've ever told on the podcast, but
that's so good.
We can get it out there in public. It was
good, dude.
The very first tournament I coached for my kids, and we're in the semifinal game. We had a lead, and umpire was not great. He wasn't great the day before. It was fine, whatever. They're youth umpires. He just starts falling in love with calling balks. So he called 7 balks in one inning against my team. One of them, immediately after the pitcher caught the ball back from the catcher, wasn't within 5 feet of the mound. Like, threw a pitch, came off the front of the mound, caught it back from the catcher, was walking back to the mound and got called for a balk, which a run scored. I think that was either the tying or the go-ahead run scored. So I got a kid who's a puddle of tears on the mound because he thinks he just lost his team the game because he balked and he has no idea why he did that.
Right.
So I go out, I take him out, I make a pitching change, and I ask the umpire, man to man. I did one of these with my hand and was like, you see all these parents sitting out here? Do you think they came to watch you call balks? And he ran me.
Yeah.
And it was like, fair.
Yep.
Probably shouldn't have said it, but like, I was extremely far from tackling the guy, right?
Yeah.
Like I was angry, and like decided to go with sass and attitude instead of physical violence. And I got ejected for it. And the first thing I thought was like, truly the first thing it was slightly raining. I turned around and snapped a clipboard in half and continued to walk off the field. But the first thing I thought as I'm walking out the field, post clipboard being snapped in half, as I look at my dugout, what example did I just set for these kids?
Sure.
Because they loved me snapping that clipboard.
They did.
They are excited. They are on the fence. And I'm just like, I don't know if I'm glad they're excited and back into this game because 2 minutes ago they were really upset.
Yeah.
And now they're just like, we're going to go win this for you. But like my very first thought was like, what the hell kind of example did I just set for these kids that like it's okay to do that during a game, to get ejected in any way during a game. Now, the ending of that story is I had very long hair at the time, and it was in a bun. I took off my hat, let my hair down, and put on your jacket, and the umpire didn't notice, and I just stood there the rest of the game, and he had no idea who I was because I took my hair down and wore your jacket. But anyways, that was my first emotion, was just like, I'm so embarrassed right now at the example I just set for these kids. And I didn't, looking back, I don't think I even set that bad of an example, right? Like probably should have done it. I was not over the top, like whatever. What's going through this guy's head? Does he think that's a good example that he just set for these kids? That like, that's how you respond to being angry at all ever? Like, that's crazy to me. And then as like a parent, to continue to allow your kid to play for someone like that, who that's the conflict resolution 101 is a flying tackle at the umpire. Yeah. And like, I was at a game this year where I watched a head coach eject an umpire.
I still feel like that's the craziest thing that...
It was wild. And I was legitimately, I don't know if I was like, I was pretty sure I was texting you while I was standing in the dugout because I wasn't the head coach for this team. I was scared for the umpire's well-being. With the way the parents from the other team were reacting and the way the coach from the other team was reacting, I was afraid for his well-being and like making sure he got to the parking lot okay. And like, I don't disagree necessarily with why they were angry. He made a comment to one of their players that like I also would have been very angry at if that was one of my players, and then stood there with a shit-eating grin on his face, staring at the parents and like very much almost egging them on, right? And like, even in that situation, I can't imagine me or anybody that we employ resorting to violence in that situation. Like if you're getting that mad, like I can't imagine what goes through your head to like, okay, I have, it's not like I've never been in a fight. Yeah, but you have to have a damn good reason to get in a fight. They're not that fun. Like,
and like, and how are these reasons is a legitimate reason to go to that place something you're ever going to find on a youth baseball field? Absent someone assaulting one of our kids or absent assaulting one of our coaches. Like how are we even getting here? So it's like on the one hand, when the guy said like, hey, some content on how to deal with emotion would be useful. It can be hard. I agree.
It is 100%. Yeah.
I agree. Right. Like the last decade of my life has been informed by me owning really poor behavior on my part when I started coaching. Yeah. Did I ever try to tackle an umpire? No, absolutely not. Was I way too intense and probably didn't do the best job of role modeling for some of the kids that I was coaching when they were younger? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Did I try to fight anybody? No. Was I a dick? Yeah, I was. And like, and I have video on my phone from when Dee was young. I think Cora was playing fast pitch at this time. It was part of that like year and a half that she tried that. And I'm like watching one of his at bats, and I think there was a base runner on, and I'm on first base. I'm first base coach, and this is at Lower Shoreview over by where I live. And I'm like, I can hear myself, and I'm talking to Dee in the box. I'm trying to coach, talking to my base runner, and I'm talking to the kids in my dugout behind me. Tone is terrible. And it's like I saw this. The tone is absolutely terrible, even if some of the coaching points are not necessarily bad.
Tone makes a difference, yeah.
And it's like I saw this clip this weekend of somebody was talking about Nick Saban, and he got lit into by Saban, and he was like, "Hey, so what I have to do is just kind of listen to the words and not listen to the tone." That's a fully grown, Division I, highest level of competition,
who's still struggling
level, who's still struggling with that.
Yeah.
So kids 7 through 18, how capable are they at kind of having that awareness and understanding?
Yeah, and not shutting it out immediately as soon as they hear the tone.
Right, because that tone infers consequence, disappointment, failure, all this other stuff that kids are going to naturally internalize. So to me, it's like when, again, like the training manual has all this stuff about cognitive development, emotional development, coordination, physical development, because I think in my attempting to be logical brain that if I can understand those things as best as possible, it puts me in a position where I'm better equipped to meet my customer where they are, rather than having inaccurate expectations that are highly likely to be disappointed, right? Like if I'm disappointed when it's a 3-2 count, bases juiced, and my 9-year-old that's like first-year kid pitch zoos a ball. Hey, man, I can assure you that every parent in the stands, every coach in the dugout, and every player on that field wanted to see that kid throw a strike.
Yeah.
I love that idea of like a 9U player rising to the challenge, and it portends something about their grit and their perseverance and all this other stuff that we want them to be developing. Okay, sure. Yeah. But like, it doesn't always work out that way.
Right.
You know, it's like, was it Bryson Scott that hit the granny?
Yeah, Bryson Scott, yeah.
First one ever.
Yeah, in the playoffs. Yeah.
And like, you know that there are these kids who probably in these October tournaments, they get up bases juiced, and there's like, to me, when I played, there was the part of that story in my head about like, I want to be successful in this moment because I want to be able to revel in it. Yeah. I want to be able to tell that story later. And you put kind of like either the consequence of failure or the joy of potentially getting it ahead of like the base thing, which is like, be here. Yeah. Be present in this moment. Yeah. And you're probably more likely to be successful that way. And I think as a coach, when I had bad behavior, it was like I'm in that moment, and it's like we had lost the game already.
Oh yeah.
Right. We've lost the game already. I'm like forecasting, like based on how this thing is going currently, it's not going to go well at the end, and we're going to fail. And like, and it says something about me. And that to me, I think is the trickiest thing, which is like, and again, my intention with trying to understand all this stuff, the Jean Piaget, et cetera, is to understand that it isn't about me. Some of it is, and some of it isn't. You know, we can put kids in systems of skill development. We can put kids in a team format that's going to cultivate competitiveness. There's nothing I can do to train their cognitive process and the boundaries and the edges of that.
Yeah.
I can provide a good example, though, right? Hey, guys, we took a bad beat today. I love you. We got some stuff that we can learn from this. We got some mistakes we don't want to make again because we know how they make us feel. Okay, cool. But that's not Terry Tating across the screen and trying to tackle the umpire.
But man. That's a clear, so like, you know, again, I was super embarrassed when I got ejected. And like first weekend coaching, the director of the academy's son is on my team, and he's sitting in the stands and just watched me get run from this game. Probably the last game I'm going to coach for Drive-On Academy. It's been a good run, right? Like these are the thoughts going through my head. Sure. Like, what the hell did I just do? Like, you really acted like a 10-year-old and just let your emotions get the best of you. You got ejected from a game in front of a bunch of 12-year-old kids, and like you're supposed to be the adult here. What are you doing? And like, luckily it didn't go that way, right? Like,
yes,
the consequences weren't that dire for my actions, but like, I wouldn't lie to you if I said that every game that I've coached since, I'm always thinking about having a poker face.
Sure.
And I get, look, they're 14-year-old boys. They're going to piss me off, right? Like I get angry, I get pissed off during games, whatever. Very, very rarely are they going to see it. And it's never at the umpire anymore.
Yeah.
Like you can't give them, you know, we've talked about weathers on the podcast or whatever, but like you can't give them that excuse.
Yep.
Like umpires are the same umpires for both teams. Like they didn't pay him before this game. I didn't pay him before this game. They're the same for both teams. This is a part of life. Life's not always fair. You're going to have to go through this. Whatever.
Yeah.
That is the action of someone he's not doing it for the kids. He's not defending kids. He is angry because it's a reflection on him of them losing 15-1.
Correct.
And he feels he is not a good coach. So like, if I'm told, and somebody may have told me that I was a really bad coach at one point, and like, I would have running tackled that guy. And like, if that's what he is getting from the umpire, like he feels like he is being made to look like a bad coach because of the umpire, I still don't get it. But that in my head is the only like reasonable explanation for this guy seeing complete red and just like acting like a 10-year-old. I don't know the guy. Maybe he is just like I'm going to resort to violence immediately, dude, which like, great.
Sure.
Shouldn't be coaching youth baseball, but like there's a lot of people that shouldn't be coaching youth baseball. But if I'm going to try to be generous and optimistic here, I'm going to hope that this was like a really bad day for a guy who's not always like that. And doesn't, we don't have someone coaching our youth who is just like, my first instinct is to go and just flying tackle an umpire.
And to be honest, relative to kind of the last 2 episodes worth of conversation, the fact that we have to ask that question to me says a lot about the system of coach training and evaluation and accreditation in the first place.
Yeah, and why do you coach?
Right.
Like, are you coaching to prove something about yourself? Or are you coaching for the kids? And like, I had this conversation not that long ago with somebody about living vicariously through the kids. And they were like, well, you can't do that as a coach. Why not? I do. Man, when they win tournaments, when they have like...
Hey, when they lose.
When they lose, I feel it. When, my mom, shout out mom, she doesn't listen to this. I don't think so. But she came in for one of our tournaments this year. Mm-hmm. It was tough. We were down like 7-1 in the semifinal. Came back to tie it at 7. Yeah. And then ran out of time and got walked off on in like the bottom of the 6th when we should have had one more inning there.
Yep.
I was like around the kids, I was fine, right? Like, hey, like this is tough. Wherever I got in the car, I didn't want to do anything else the rest of the day. I was like, well, I'm in, like my aunt, my uncle were also in town. They're like, hey, like, well, let's go out and have ice cream. Ice cream. Ice cream's for winners. I'm not eating ice cream today. Like, this is a terrible idea. Like, but like, I didn't let the kids see that. But like, yeah, I live vicariously. When they lose, I lose. When they win, I win. And I love seeing those kids win and celebrate. Like, it makes me so happy. And I'm not doing it because I think somehow I could have been a major leaguer if I had a coach like me. Like, I'm not living vicariously that way.
Yeah.
But like, I think as a coach, you kind of have to live vicariously through these kids. You have to want to be really excited for them when good things happen.
I mean, if you're doing it the right way and you're invested that way, how could you not?
How could you not?
How could you not?
Right.
But I think the tipping point there is being able to do that in a way where specifically when they struggle and fail, that you don't let that color your own sense of self to a degree that it compels this emotional response.
Right.
Because this is the thing, like, yeah, it was your first week in coaching that group, and I was there. When you got ran, I didn't know why. I knew that you talked to him, but you didn't, and like, I mean, are you...
But I wasn't yelling.
Right,
Yeah.
Right. That's the thing, right? And, it's like we talked a couple episodes about, Ken Griffey Jr.'s rules for Ken Griffey, right? Mm-hmm. Don't show up anybody on the field and have fun. Yes, you said something to get tossed by that ump, but I would argue that you did it in a way that he didn't get shown up.
Yes, so I umped myself for 8 years. Like I have only ejected one parent or / coach. He was a coach, but he was also a parent. But like I am acutely aware of how poorly people treat umpires, and I really don't do that thing. Like we had an instance this year with a balk that was not a balk, right? It was people love I blame Nestor Cortez. If you listen to this podcast, it's on you, Nestor. No, he loves to do like I'm going to hold my leg up there and try to mess up timing.
Yep.
We had a couple kids who really like to do that. Great. I got no problem with that. Like, as long as it doesn't wreck your timing, mess with kids. I'm fine.
Right.
And we had an ump who called the balk on a hesitation move. Not a balk.
It's literally not a balk because there's no intent.
Right. So I went up, I called time, talked to him about it. There was a disagreement. Okay. He said, and this, we have a fine relationship, but it's fine. But like, this is partly on him for saying this, but like, there's calm conversation, and he said, if you can go get me like a rule book with the balk rule, like we can. Okay.
I know
So-
someone who happens to own an MLB rule book.
In my bag. Great, I could do this. So yeah, I immediately go to the dugout, find it in the rule book, and wait until in between the half inning. Go up, show it to him. He sees it, still disagrees. Fine. And we had like a nice, normal, calm. Okay, like I don't agree, and like, but I will tell my kids to stop doing that because I don't want them calling for you calling them for a balk, and I understand that you're not going to change that because that's how you interpret this rule. And balk is a very interpretable, subjective rule, so like I understand having different interpretations of it than I do. I got an email from that fellow the next day who also just so happened to be a middle school band teacher of one of my kids because that's who umps are.
Yeah.
They're not professional umpires. He's a middle school band teacher that has out of the kindness of his heart does this on weekends and he gets paid for it. But like he does it on weekends so that kids can still play because we're losing umpires left and right in this country.
Yep.
And he emailed me with a couple videos of it being called a balk and why he felt he was right and like nothing mean or anything like that. And like that was a disagreement with an umpire that was handled entirely civilly. Yeah. And like my kids were pissed about it. And like the pitcher that did it would have gotten ejected if I had let him. Yeah. Because he's that kid and he was really upset about being called for that balk. Yep. And it's like, why do you coach? Are you out here for yourself and to prove that like you're a leader of men and like you can like, or are you out here for the kids? And like that's probably the only question you need to ask in a situation like this. Because if you're out here for the kids, you're not doing that.
So, this is a perfect segue into the
next video.
The most worst.
Because I was gonna say, when I said I always think poker face. Part of that is, there's probably Wiki Video Game Changer. So there's definitely a video on me right now, and there's video evidence of everything that's going on here. If I were a parent, or not even a parent, if I were walking past this game, because being a youth baseball guy, I will often walk past games and immediately turn around and walk away when I see terrible things happen. Yep. If I were walking past this game, I don't have children. Is that someone I'd let my hypothetical children play for? And I don't ever want that answer to be no. If I'm the one that's on the field or any of our coaches, I don't want, and like this next video is a guy who like, I have to imagine if he was shown this video, it would break his heart just a little bit. Maybe it wouldn't, but like just, it's a really good example to me of like, you don't realize what you look like when you're angry until you see a video and you realize how petulant and childish you look.
Yeah. So, the other, hey, sorry, it's the
other video
hour. The other video, apparently takes place down in old, HB Huntington Beach down in the California area. And it's just a dad that is just wearing out this kid,
his own kid, essentially.
It's got to be his own kid. This isn't just a coach. And again, this is
maybe this is private lessons.
For again, if this is for my inflammatory algorithm bait title of an episode, parents are the problem. This parent is absolutely a problem. The tricky thing, though, is that if you went into the comments, there is very much like this hurt people energy throughout.
They're probably not wrong.
I don't see the issue here. A father pushing his son to be the best he can be. Success, especially in athletics, is done in the dark. The work you do when no one's watching.
People were watching, though.
Yeah, somebody was watching. People crying about this video never even take their kids to the field to make them better. This guy is spending his spare time working on something his son wants to do. God. So, sure, that gives you...
How do you watch that video and that's your comment?
Yeah, that gives you the purview to just, like, light your kid up. A little excessive language, but dad spending time to try to get his son better. Can't hate him too much. At least he's present. That's like... Excuse me. I'm going to lean into hyperbole here. That's like your pastor sexually assaulted you, but at least he taught you communion. Like what?
I'm going to stay away from that one, but you're probably not wrong. Yeah.
Okay, so he's being a little hard on the kid. He's frustrated. He's out there working with him, though. If he never praises the kid, then that's an issue, but I bet he does.
What? You bet? How
You
much
bet?
are you willing to bet? Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. It's called tough love. LOL. People should mind their business. I wish my dad would have did me like this. Seems to me that people need to mind their own business. In my opinion, this father did nothing wrong. We don't know the backstory.
I will say, it does make me slightly uncomfortable that the video is taken by like another parent from the parking lot that like probably doesn't know them.
Sure.
Probably taking out like, look, if I'm at a park and I see that going on, I don't know if I'm a good enough person to like walk up and try to stop it. Like that isn't my business, right? Like you're not actually.
Sure.
I don't know that that's illegal what he's doing. So like I don't have a right to step in. Like you're parenting your child. If you want to swear at your kid and like he wasn't pegging him with baseballs.
I've told the Fahrenheit or Celsius joke on this podcast, right?
I don't think so.
Oh man. There's no test to be able to make people.
Correct.
There's no licensing.
Correct.
Right? Michelle and I, when we were pregnant with our first child, they had, these birthing classes you're supposed to go to, right? And like, good, because I have no, like,
great.
I was high school health. I passed, but I don't, you don't know. No. So we go there.
If they give you a banana, you'd be able to, you'd be all right.
Yeah. I got that part. So we go through the whole thing. We're at the tail end of it. And we're at the, like, what happens when you actually get home with the baby. And like, fun fact, all of the teaching in the world is not going to change the fact that when you make a person and you have to like put them in the car seat and drive them to your home and you don't have like help.
Yeah.
There's no teaching that's going to solve how rattled you will be. I promise you. But so they're talking about, warning signs, stuff to watch out for. And the teacher, this wonderful woman that's leading the class, she says, hey, with kids, brand new newborns and fevers, if the temperature gets, above 100 or 102 up in 103, 104, it's not like an adult where it's like, hey, we're going to do like cold compress and medicine, like take your kid into the doctor and try to figure out what's going on because you just don't have a lot of runway with stuff with newborns. And there's this guy in the back of the class, raises his hand very earnestly. Teacher, what's your question? He goes, is that 100 Fahrenheit or Celsius?
If it's Celsius, it's too late, my guy.
Yes, when your child is like literally like self-immolating, please take them into the doctor.
Too late. Actually, at that point, it's probably too late.
It's too late.
Don't touch them. You're going to burn your hands.
Yeah.
Right.
Point being that like there's no licensing system to be able to make people.
Correct.
But then, you have to kind of ask, like, how do people come to these conclusions about the way that they parent, which bleeds into the way that they coach in youth baseball, because our ecosystem, Jerry and Jack, I see you guys, our ecosystem is just, it's dominated by parents. And somebody watches this video and goes, this is how champions are made.
That's a comment?
No, it ain't. No, it ain't. And I would almost offer definitively that for every champion that was made that way, go do a little research on Mutt and Mickey Mantle's relationship as father and son. Do a little bit of research on George Brett and his dad.
Marinovich. There's a 30 for 30 on Todd Marinovich.
We know definitively that like these young boys that turned into young men who were successful at the highest level of competition ultimately did it in spite of their parents.
Yeah.
And ultimately dealt with a bunch of other downstream stuff that wrecked the rest of their life. And if you're a parent and you have the capacity to push your child and you're grappling with, I could help him be a professional athlete, but it's going to make our relationship toxic in perpetuity and they're going to hate me. Is that even a choice?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is how champions are made. No, it's not. No, it's not. And it's not with a child at that age. In so much as, yes, there is a point where kids need to be able to like
champions
learn.
Of what though? He didn't specify.
Yeah. There's an age where kids need to learn accountability and consequence, right? We had kids, we had our first on field yesterday. Some of our kids didn't show up with baseball stuff. One of them may have had to practice with a baseball helmet on for a while.
I love you. I'm sorry. It was funny though.
But accountability matters, and we love that kid. And part of it is like, hey, you need to learn this a little bit.
He won't forget his hat ever again. I promise you that.
100%. Here's I think the last comment that I screenshot before I really was like, my stomach is turned and I can't engage with this subject anymore. He's honestly being a good dad. I played baseball my whole life. Somebody who's actually working with you out there helps a lot. I mean, again, we'll do the video thing. That ain't help.
No.
That's not help. But here's the one that killed me. Most of the time when a dad acts like this, it's because they know what their kid is capable of and want to see them do it for themselves. He's an amazing dad.
An amazing dad.
So, a good friend of mine has a son who is currently, he's on the street. And he has struggled with drug addiction, and they don't really know, it's like you're hoping. All you can do at this point is just hope.
Yeah.
I think this relationship between like parents and children is a lot more fragile than we realize. And there's all sorts of bad stuff that can go wrong with the best of parents. And my buddy, who's dealing with this right now, is a man. I would have him raise my kids. He's one of those dudes. And he did everything right and still dealing with the situation. So like, man, it's, I want to be able to give, positive content about how to avoid this situation. And I think the first thing is you're going to be your child's parent forever. Yeah. They're going to play sports for like such a small fraction of that time. So it begs the question, like, what do we want this thing to serve as a vehicle for? Yeah. Is it a vehicle for me to train my kid to be a champion with this like delivery mechanism that is pure negativity, pure consequence enforcement?
And you got to imagine that leaks into academics and things that aren't
could
just
it not?
baseball, right? Like if that's the way you respond to this, that's probably just your move to respond to things. It's
right.
Like,
and again, like when I talk about the Jean Piaget, the concrete, and the formal operational stuff, I typically talk about it when it comes to kids dealing with consequence. But the amusing thing is if you actually get a little bit deeper in the Piaget stuff, when he talks about this transition into the from the concrete operational phase, where kids are largely kind of just like defined by this very concrete understanding of the world, and then the formal operational stage, which is when you're able to grapple with abstract thought concepts. Piaget says the formal operational stage, this final cognitive stage of development, starts around 13, and it lasts until adulthood. And when I see stuff like this with a dad wearing his kid out for 2 minutes and 18 seconds, and then the video cuts off.
Right.
That's a long time.
Well, and it's clear. Well, if you watch the video, that's the end of it. Who knows how long it had been going on?
Well, I mean, and what was the car ride back home?
Oh God.
Right.
Didn't even think about that. God.
When I see stuff like that, the thing that jumps off the page is that I do wonder if this is just a parent who like can't handle this abstract concept. Your child might have not done great at hitting today, and that doesn't mean that they're a failure. It just means that they're a child.
Yeah.
And the thing that is the kicker, shout out to my buddy Hoots, in the background of this whole thing, this kind of covert recording and this really poor interaction, home of the 2011 Little League World Series champs.
Yeah. To me, the part that got me the most about that video was, and you can barely hear the kid, but there's like subtitles, right? And it's dad throws one, and the kid says, like, you're pissed. Yeah. And it's like, the kid just doesn't want him to be pissed.
Yep.
Like, he just doesn't want his dad to be mad at him and throwing balls harder.
I mean, what do you want to do, right? You want to make your parents proud. You want to make them happy.
And it's like, that was the part that hurt the most, was like, the kid saying, "You're pissed." Damn right, I'm pissed.
Yeah.
You just missed a ball down the middle. Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. What is that guy's relationship with his child going to be like in 10 years?
And and when the video of the Terry Tate the tackle attempt, one of the things that I saw, I think the title of what somebody posted that was like, dads shouldn't be coaching kids at 13 and older. I don't think you can give a pass to like 12 and under.
I was just going to say,
Right?
You could have stopped that. Dad shouldn't be coaching kids, but
I mean, and that's
their own kids.
And it is. I think it is the reason that we spend all this time talking about coach accreditation and coach training in youth baseball is because it's I think it's our biggest issue.
I don't think there's even a close second, to be honest.
It's.
I think if you clean that up, the change to youth baseball, if we just start as base, like go to first principles,
Yep.
make the coaches better.
Yep.
It's going to radically make youth baseball across the country different.
Yep. It's youth baseball, so you're never going to be in a place where you have an overabundance of professional coaches, right? Like you and I are very much outliers in this whole thing.
Yeah.
You're going to have volunteers. They're going to do this job.
We're becoming less and less outliers.
Well,
as like
sure.
travel ball cannibalizes
Sure.
rec ball and park district and stuff like that. Like, we're becoming less and less of an outlier.
Sure, but even if that trend continues, then you're just talking about dads starting teams that are still kind of doing this on the side.
Yeah, I guess it's true because a lot of the orgs around here, like, they're larger orgs, but like the coaches are dads.
Yeah. If you don't grapple with the core intention of what we're trying to do and really get everybody on the same page, you're going to have this stuff happen. Like it is just going to happen, and you're going to have that dad that walks up to the field and it says home of the 2011 World Series champs, yada yada, and okay, cool. Well, now that is our North Star, and everything that we do has to push this kid towards that North Star, regardless of how negative, regardless of how regressive, regardless of how consequential you make that child feel.
Yeah.
And again, I will just ask the question, like, what other type of learning do we treat that way? Is there anything? Your kid's math class doesn't work that way. Their science class doesn't work that way. Their art class doesn't work that way. None of it works that way. None of it. Like my kids are just going through some test in high school that is it's reactive. So it starts them with questions that are of like a kind of like a base level of complexity.
Okay.
And if they answer them successfully, it kind of continues to curve up the difficulty because they're trying to find the edges of that.
Right.
And if they struggle, then it kind of curves it down.
That makes sense.
If you show up to the field and you're compelled that the only acceptable outcome of every single youth baseball game is to win it, that's not meeting the kid where they are. That's not even giving you the opportunity.
It's not even trying.
It's not even trying. No. It's not even trying.
I mean, that's why we'll go back to like, why are you coaching?
Right.
What's your why? Not to get too PCA about it, but like, what's your why? Like, are you coaching to make yourself feel better? And because you think I have to give back. I'm a leader of men. I have to give back. Like, I have to coach. Like, you shouldn't be coaching for you.
And what are you trying to lead them towards?
Right.
Like ultimately, like, what are you trying to lead them towards? Like I saw a very salad post on one of these socials over the course, I think, the last few days. And it was about how basically like the core premise is that pattern matching is like a number one thing that can help a lot of people throw harder.
Okay.
I mean, it's salad because, like, look, do I think every kid in this country should find like an elite level mover that they want to idolize and try to see if that can kind of inform the pattern that they use? 100,000%.
Yeah.
If you saw the text messages between me and my kids, you'd see me sending them a ton of stuff. And it's just like, hey, this is a really cool thing that happens.
Right.
I do that because I want them to see joy in this thing. And I think that maybe if they see a little bit of something about somebody else's movement that informs their movement and it's beneficial, great.
Great, yeah.
Like that's great. But pattern matching isn't ultimately going to increase your amount of force production.
Right, there's not...
Right?
Right,
like,
correct.
Which is why it's kind of salad.
Right. It's not a full salad buffet, but it is like a light side salad.
It's a side salad. It's probably a pretty good side salad.
Yeah.
I mean, house salad, little blue cheese, nothing wrong with that.
Ooh, we're gonna get comments about that one, blue cheese.
Oh, blue cheese.
I'm with you, but like that's a very polarizing dressing.
I'm team blue cheese all day.
I'm not gonna disagree.
All day.
We're gonna have some ranch fans in the comments here.
Shout out to anybody that is familiar with the comedian Joey Diaz. It's blue cheese or F your mother.
There you go.
Very strong feeling. If I was going to offer some salad of my own about this whole thing, I don't think that there is anything more impactful about your child's development that you could offer them than love. I just don't. Because if you think about this journey from like 9 to 19, right? There's going to be a period of that experience where you are going to kind of have to drive the car a little bit, and I mean that both in a literal and a figurative sense, right? And if you take it all the way back to go like 5 to 19, right? You want to expose kids to the things that you think that they will enjoy. Right. And sometimes we also expose them to the things that we enjoyed. Right. And somewhere along the way, that kid finds a passion. Mm-hmm. But they're going to be just as passionate about baseball as they're going to be passionate about Roblox or whatever, right? They're going to be passionate about baseball. They're going to be passionate about Minecraft, be passionate about skateboarding. So you want to continue to help them get exposure to all these things. But eventually, we all kind of like choose a thing, like not all of us, the majority of us don't do the Aaron Judge thing where it's going to be like varsity baseball, varsity basketball, varsity football, because he's a literal giant, right? Most of these kids are just going to find a thing. So you drive the car for a bit, but at a certain point, the kid takes accountability and they take ownership.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that at the end of the day, if you love that kid as much as you can, you are just giving them an opportunity to support where that journey goes. Because at the end of the day, guess what? You can't control it.
No. And the more you try, the more negative the consequences get with your relationship with your child.
Of course. And this is the thing, like, kids that live like incredibly sheltered experiences, right? Well, what happens when they get some freedom? They break out. These kids who get like, well, that's how you make champions. No, that's how you make a kid that hates baseball.
Or hates his parents.
Or both.
Or both, yeah.
That's the thing you're driving towards. And all you have to do is just love that kid, man. Yeah. That's the only thing that you have to do is you could just love them. You could love their successes. You could love their failures. You could harness those learning opportunities. And then you're going to push that kid in a different direction than this shit.
Yeah.
And the thing I think about is like a couple years ago, there was that video of the kid who, I can see it in my eye. Like I can see it in my head. There's the kid is sitting in the passenger seat of the car and he thinks his dad forgot his birthday, and they go into the trunk
and there's the baseball bat
and there's the brand new bat. And the kid is like,
that's an old one, but that's, yeah, right. It doesn't get better than that video. Yeah.
Electric, yeah. Right? I saw something on Instagram the other day talking like that kid is still playing baseball.
I mean, whatever the quote is like, I think we even talked about this in the last pod, right? It's not what you said or what you did, it's how they made you feel. And like that kid, one of the best memories of his life includes baseball.
Yep.
This kid, maybe several of the worst memories of his life are going to include baseball.
Well, and now it's on the internet.
Yeah.
Right?
Which you feel very terrible for the kid. There's like that kid, was the Charlie bit my finger? That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But like, I'm pretty sure I read an article like not that long ago. That kid had some like really rough downstream effects from that video being as public and as viral as it was.
Dude, the kid that was naked on the Nirvana album sued them.
Yeah. Yeah.
and like, I just, what's my content about how to deal with this emotion? I think it's you just need to love your kids more.
Yeah. And remember that's what matters at the end of the day. It's not the result of a game. But like that's from my coaching standpoint. You have to remember that you're always setting an example. No matter what the situation is, you are more than a baseball coach. You have a bunch of kids that are looking up to you. How you respond, if they like you and respect you, will go into their toolbox of how they respond in the future to certain similar situations. And the more negative you are, the more violent, if you will, that you are, that is what you are encouraging in kids. So, like, one of those, like, there are going to be some kids on that team that quit. There's going to be some kids on that guy's team that grow up to become baseball coaches that do that shit.
And that's the worst part,
Uh-huh.
right? Like this is, you know, we can talk about this as like the hurt people.
And it's going to be the kid whose mom yelled that was still a strike. Or that still wasn't a strike or whatever it was.
That's the toughest part. That is the absolute toughest part is that to a degree, some of this stuff is being normalized.
Yeah.
Like and even if it's not normalized, it's just like, okay, well, you know, that's a thing that we might have to experience this weekend.
Yeah. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you're way more online than I am. I've never seen a video of a kid going after an umpire.
The only thing that you see is like sometimes like the ballsy kids
who just stick it and frame it and hold it for like 20 seconds. I do really enjoy those.
I love that, and I also love the drawing the line. Right, you draw the line in the box yeah, you know, that's pattern matching probably. And
that was the game I almost got thrown out of this year.
Yeah,
where one of my kids, there was no batter's box, so he drew a batter's box in, and the umpire thought he was drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah,
he was, to be clear, but like also there was no batter's box. So
yeah, I don't know, man. You know, I wrote my guts out about this in the book Training Manual, honey. Training manual.
That guy can't read it though.
Yeah. Well, we'll put it out. I mean, you know, once we get out, we'll put some free chapters out.
No, I'm saying he can't read.
Oh yeah. Well, probably. Yeah.
But like that's, you know, we joked around that the title of this episode, just to be inflammatory, is gonna be "Parents Are the Problem." But like, I've never seen a kid in a video fighting an umpire, trying to fight an umpire. Yeah. Like all of these videos of terrible behavior at youth sports, youth baseball.
Yeah.
Is it ever the kid? Like maybe the only one, and I don't even remember if we talked about it on the podcast, was the kid trucking the catcher.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen stuff like
which is
that.
like 18U, like
sure. I mean, there was another one from a couple weeks ago where there's a kid that's coming down the line from third to score. There's no play at the plate, and the catcher kind of just leans out, and you know, and gives him a little bit of shoulder check, and like that's behavior by teenagers in a competition environment that isn't great. Fine. Where
did they learn that?
Right. And you know, I mean, look, when A-Rod came up the line and tried to knock the ball out of, you know, whoever's hand, was that a learned behavior? Is that a bad decision in the heat of the moment?
Well, I love A-Rod, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here.
Obviously.
It's the worst part about the playoffs. The amount of A-Rod and John Smoltz that are in my life right now is just the worst.
It's heavy.
Although I did want to talk a little bit about the amount of errors that are being made.
I forgot. So again, to set the stage for this kind of part of the conversation, this whole idea of like that's how champions are made, right? That you're gonna like a kid is gonna make a mistake, whether in the form of this video, they're not gonna do well in a hitting session, they're gonna make a mistake on the field. And there's this thought in some people's mind that like the mechanism by which you maximize the value out of that mistake is you criminalize it, as if that mistake is like an aberration that shouldn't occur.
Right. That like and I feel like a lot of and I'm pretty sure it was last podcast that I said this, but people need to watch more professional baseball and not just like highlights. If they get upset by kids or anybody making errors or missing a cutoff man or anything, they just need to watch more professional baseball to understand why kids are okay. Like, it's okay if they make it. Like, screaming at them, not the right move. Definitely talking to them. Hey, why'd you miss the cut? Like, sure. Like, if it happens time and time again, and like he's just not listening, like, sure, there can be repercussions there. But I watched and I'm aware that the Rays got limited in 2 games. If you think the Rays are a bad organization, please leave it in the comments. They made the playoffs year in and year out with an extremely low payroll. They play very good baseball, and they made 4 errors in their first game. That didn't even count all of the actual errors. like multiple missed cutoff man from a center fielder who is like coming off an injury and wanted to show off his arm, and like at least 3 times in that game just sent it clear over the cutoff man's head. I happen to be, I'm sorry for bringing this up. I was watching the game yesterday. No, 2 days ago.
Yeah.
It was 2 days ago. Did they play yesterday?
No, it was Saturday.
Okay, it was Saturday. One of the best pitchers I have ever seen in my life, and probably will ever see, gave up a double with a runner on second and stood on the mound.
First ballot Hall of Famer.
Yep.
First ballot.
Yep. And like Kershaw was probably pretty shell shocked, but like he didn't back it up.
Yep.
He didn't back up home. Like, yet I'm supposed to, based on parents that, you know, give me feedback or talk to me, I'm supposed to scream at this kid and bench him for missing a cutoff man, when first ballot Hall of Famer is like so flustered in a game in the heat of competition that he forgets to go back up home plate. Yeah. Or a center fielder for a year in and year out playoff team really wants to get that guy out at third and sails it over the cutoff man's head, allows the guy from first to take second and then score later on a single. Just giving away free bases like 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds.
Right.
That guy makes millions of dollars. He does it, and I am sure if I went on comments online, I would see lots of stuff about him. But like, how in any world, that's like expecting children to never get math questions wrong, because guys who are like mathematicians don't get it wrong. So why do you?
Right. And the more that you understand reality, which is that the best baseball players in the world make mistakes. The point is not...
And don't always do things fundamentally right.
Right. And
they're there because of skill output, not because of fundamentals. Like, I don't want to call you out, Jose Siri, but like, you aren't on a big league roster because you do a great job of putting the ball in play and always hitting the cutoff man. You're on a big league roster because you hit bombs and you have a hose for an arm in center field and you can run.
And our point isn't that like these mistakes should kind of just be like, yay, we made a mistake. That's not it. The point is, if you understand that the professionals at the highest level of consequence will make mistakes, well then guess what? Children will too. And if you want them to get anything out of that mistake, then the path is not to criminalize it, it's to contextualize it.
Right.
What happened? What was the decision that you'd made? Would you make a different decision? How would you treat that thing differently? Okay, I love you, and I'm going to give you another opportunity to learn that next time.
Yep.
That's it.
An example in a game that I had last year was I had a center fielder dive for a ball, and the right fielder stopped and watched him dive because he thought he was going to make the play and wanted to stop and watch it. Missed it, and it went all the way to the fence because the guy wasn't backing him up. Got back to the dugout. We had a conversation about it. 2 innings later, he didn't dive for a ball, but a ball got past him in center field. And the right fielder, was right there and immediately came back and was very excited that he made the right play that time.
Yep.
But like, that doesn't happen if I just like yell at him and make him afraid to make a mistake. And like, I don't understand how, to me, the only reasonable explanation is like, you don't, only reasonable explanation of thinking kids are never going to make errors or wanting people to get really mad at kids when they make errors is you don't watch enough baseball, let alone at the major league level, but at the college level or at the minor league baseball level, to understand that like these guys make a ton of errors.
Just
like, baseball is really, really hard, and like you're not always going to do it right. And maybe we'll talk about this in a later episode, but we did our defensive testing yesterday.
Yep.
And like, we don't test on whether or not they made the play. Whether or not they caught the ball in center field, whether or not they feel the ball clean at shortstop, we don't test for that because that doesn't really matter. You can do everything wrong and catch it. You can do everything wrong or everything right and miss it.
Yeah.
So why would we ever focus on what the actual result is and not the process that led to you having that result?
Yeah. It's 2 different signals.
So like, the result of missing a cutoff man, you have that conversation. Maybe it's he didn't know where to go with the ball, right? Okay, great. So we weren't thinking pre-play.
Sure.
Right?
Didn't
So like, before that ball gets hit into play, we got to know if it's hit to my right, this is what I'm doing with the ball. If it's hit to my left, this is what I'm doing with the ball. If I got to turn my back and run, this is where I need to find that cutoff man, whatever. If we're not thinking there, then we're going to make that mistake when we get into that. But like, that's a much better fix than like How dare you miss the cutoff man? Not finding the root of the problem and fixing it, but just like making it so that this kid is terrified that the next time he misses the cutoff man, he's not going to play.
Well, and go one level deeper in youth baseball, kids are going to constantly come up against the edges of things like that because they haven't seen it happen before.
Right.
How do you get the value out of that? You break it down. Okay, you've never seen that before? Okay, cool. I understand that. This is the thing you did. Yeah. I understand why you did that thing. Next time, when this thing happens again, in like, look, man, you know, we're still finding plays, things in our game where it's just like, never seen that before.
Yeah.
You know, like that stuff is still happening in 2023.
I was watching Phillies Braves on Saturday, and there was a catcher's interference.
Yeah.
And I was watching with a buddy of mine who's not a big baseball fan, whatever. We were there to watch the Gophers get pounded by Michigan. Sorry, boys. But that game was on. Yeah, we knew we were going to win. But that game was on. And there was a catcher's interference in that game. I don't know if you're watching that game, but there was a catcher's interference play. And they went to review. I honestly don't know. Like, you still couldn't really tell from the review. They called the catcher's interference, whatever, and it doesn't watch a lot of baseball, but he had never seen that.
Yeah.
And it was like dumbfounding to him that a major league catcher would make that mistake in that big of a game. Well, of course he would. Like, they're not perfect.
Yeah.
Like, Steph Curry, really good, misses over 50% of the time, right? Like, these guys are not perfect, and the expectations of kids that adults have for kids to emulate what they see makes me wish that they saw, instead of like a highlight package, because I get it.
Yeah.
Watching a baseball game is...
You got to be committed.
Yeah, I'm a loser, right? I watch a lot of baseball games. But like, it's a time commitment. If you have kids, they're probably running around. You're probably not paying a ton of attention.
Yeah.
I can, sit in the comfort of my couch and just watch a baseball game and see all the things that make me, as a youth baseball coach, yell at the dudes on TV. Like, I could see in Jose Siri's body language that he was sending that ball all the way to third without even blinking.
Yeah.
That, like, I am going to throw this guy out. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
he hadn't even touched that ball, and I knew where that ball was going. I'm pretty sure the third baseman knew where that ball was going to, right? Like, and I'm yelling, hit your cutoff, man. Like, you just gave up an extra base.
Yeah.
In a game that, like, I mean, they're out now. That was not that.
No.
Like, if they had made that many mental mistakes,
Yep.
and that doesn't go in the record book as an error.
Yep.
Right? He just missed a cut, like, whatever. But they don't, if you just watch highlights, you see home runs, you see guys throwing nasty stuff, you guys see guys making great defensive plays, and you expect your child to do those things. And it's like, well, you also should expect him to do all the other things that Major League Baseball players do that you don't watch enough, which is not be perfect all the time.
It's just part of it, man.
I mean, you watch the Rangers pitcher bullpen come in and just walk the house immediately.
Yeah. Leclerc. What is...
Leclerc did. Chapman threw like 6 straight balls.
Yeah.
Josh Spores threw like 7 straight balls at one point.
Yeah.
And then got an out on a 3-0 swing, which I'm sure there were some old people real mad at that. Yeah. Which I get, 7 straight balls out of the bullpen, and then you're going to make an out on a 3-0 swing. But like, if you can't just hope that they emulate the really good parts and then get mad when they emulate the actual parts that if you watched games closely, you would see all the time.
It's just an integral part of it.
Right.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, like some positive content to take away from this, I think the first thing to do is I honestly think you're exactly right. Why am I coaching? Like, why am I just trying to be a warm body? Okay, yeah, but like dig deeper. Because every other parent that has a kid on that team could step up to coach. Yeah. You happen to be the one that's doing it. Why? Why are you what are you compelled to do that? Oh, you want them to have something? Okay, cool. What do you want them to have?
What do you want their experience to be?
What is their experience defined by? Next step, hey man, if you want to go down this cognitive development phase of things, just like understand that like these kids and you need to be able to understand how to grapple with, I did my best and we still lost. Or I might not have performed as well as we could have and I won. I made a mistake, but I learned from it. These are abstract concepts and application that are going to help them be more successful adults, regardless of what type of baseball player they're going to be.
Yeah. Shout out to Kozak, who we'll probably bring on at some point.
Yeah.
But one thing he said last week that was the most impactful coaching point that he's ever received that I really found impactful to me, and I'm going to use it with my kids all the time, is I need you to be okay with being really good today. I know you want to be great. Like, I know you want to PR. I know you want to be great. You want to be better than you've ever been. I just need you okay with being good and being really good. Like,
I can't even tell you how many times I've seen those kids who like they have a PR and then the next practice they don't PR again and they get down.
Take it down. And like, my kids are getting to the age where those PRs are going to be way more infrequent.
Yep.
Because it's harder to go from 85 to 90 than it is to go from 75 to 85. Yep. And like, that is a message I'm going to send over and over and over again is like, I need you to be okay with being really good today.
Yeah. And
like you don't have to be great every time you're in here. Like, I need you to be okay with being good.
And to that point, this thing only gets harder the longer you do it.
Yeah.
Like it gets fractal that way, right? It gets way, way harder. I am very convinced that the only path to support a kid through that is you just have to love the crap out of them. I just...
Yeah, but if that kid makes it to the major leagues, he's now heard what the hecklers are going to say. So he has that defense.
Yeah.
He's immunized against the drunk men at a baseball game that are going to heckle him. Because his father, who, I don't know, he seemed like he might have been drunk.
Yeah.
But his father berated him, so now he's got that skin. He's got thick skin, that like champions do,
Yeah, that was somebody was like, well, how are you going to get ready to play at Yankee Stadium if you can't take this as a 9-year-old? It's like, well,
you're right.
The best part is
honestly, you're right.
You're never going to have to answer that question. You're never, unless your kid is...
I said it as a joke, and somebody actually commented that. Oh, my God.
And unless your kid is Mickey Mantle, and they are going to hate themselves and hate their father and become like a degenerate alcoholic in spite of you, you're never going to have to answer that question. So good luck finding the edges of that. I just... as an adult... You have to be cognizant of the impact that you have on these kids. And if you start to ask yourself those type of questions, how do I want to make people feel? Why am I coaching? Why do my kids struggle to put context to this experience? Why am I struggling to put context to this experience? It's going to help you find answers to those things. Yeah. Or you could just be a directionless ball of rage, Terry-tating it across my screen, and then we get to talk about it here.
Yeah. If you're a coach who's listening, ask yourself that question for sure. If you're a parent who's listening, if you don't know the answer to why your coach coaches, why your kids coaches, ask.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really good way of finding out if you're in the right spot. If you agree with the reasoning of why your coach coaches and you feel comfortable with that, I'm sure you wouldn't be thrilled if you found out your child had a teacher who only wanted to teach because everyone has to focus on them when they're teaching.
Well, I mean, that was a question that I posed during the solo pod. I was like, you walk into your classroom.
Still haven't listened, by the way.
It's fine. We're too busy. Jury duty. If you walk into the classroom and your child's teacher is like, yeah, so he like, hey, I'm Joe. I'm gonna be teaching, third grade this year. Don't have a teaching accreditation, but like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Is there any way
I'm a leader of young men?
Yeah.
And women.
Is there any way that anyone is going to hear that and be like, tight, and not run directly to the principal's office and be like, what are we doing? Yeah. And that scene unfolds every single day on baseball fields across the country.
Except for nobody runs to the principal's office.
Correct, because there is no principal office because the national governing bodies of our sport don't have the power to like enforce any of this stuff. I got to go into my PD meeting, but yeah. Why are you coaching? Do you understand these kids? Do you understand their natural inclination? Do you understand that they aren't small adults? Can you love the crap out of them?
The answer to any of those is no. Don't coach, please, for the rest of us.
You're either un-F yourself,
yeah,
or find someone else.
Yeah.
Find someone else because, yeah, you're like, well, at least someone's spending time with them. Yeah, at least someone is impacting and that's tangible emotional damage that's going to reverberate for the next 20 to 50 years of that kid's life. At least somebody's doing that. At least we're checking that box.
Think about how sad you have to be to say that.
It's the worst. And it's just like, it kills me that we just accept like this lowest common denominator shit in youth baseball. Well at least he's there. Yeah. That kid would be better off doing the Ted Williams thing, right? Better off doing the Ted Williams thing. Go down there and hit by yourself and get away from your toxic parent.
Yeah.
So if you're that toxic parent,
self-toss.
maybe you're creating the next Ted Williams because you're such a jerk and that's the best case outcome, but I doubt it. I think you're probably just making a kid hate baseball.
That's probably.
Yeah. So, fun times,
Yeah.
happy times, good times.
That's why you turned into this pod.
That's why you turn into the pod. We'll be back next week talking. We should talk about the defense thing some more. Talk about defense thing more. We'll talk about the book. I really want to continue to talk about like high performance and like strength because again, like, man, is pattern matching going to help your kid? Sure, absolutely. Is force production going to help your kid a heck of a lot more? Probably.
Yes.
So you should probably do more of that. Anyways, we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you.